Hello, hello. Good afternoon, and welcome to Associated Black Charities and our monthly webinar series, Equity at Work. We're so happy to have you here. Happy November. We've made it almost to the end of the year, and we're here to talk about ABC's focus really on the racial wealth gap and workplace discrimination and the things that keep us, the barriers, the obstacles that keep us from our best opportunities, specifically in the workplace. And today we are talking about procurement, and so specifically inclusive procurement and what it means to support Black-owned businesses from a corporate framework. And we know that for generations, Black-owned businesses have powered innovation, creativity, and community wealth building. Yet too many of those same businesses are locked out of the very economic ecosystems that drive prosperity. And it's not because they lack the talent, but because the systems were never designed with them in mind. And we know that procurement can often be looked at as being about contracts and about a process of selecting vendors and suppliers, but procurement is deeply impacted and shaped by relationships, networks, biases, and unwritten rules that we'll talk about today. So today's session is meant to disrupt the myth of race-neutral procurement. We're going to examine how inclusive procurement is not just good business strategy, it's a moral obligation and an economic imperative. And we're going to look at what it means to redesign purchasing power, to expand opportunity, strengthen communities, and build long-term sustainable wealth for Black-owned businesses. My name is Chrissy Thornton. I'm here for Associated Black Charities, and we have a dynamic speaker on with us today. And I would like to invite him to join me on screen.
Hey, Chrissy, how you doing?
Hey, well. If it isn't Sharif Small, thank you for joining Associated Black Charities Equity at Work.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Of course. Listen, when we're thinking about procurement and uplifting Black businesses and thinking about economic empowerment, your name certainly comes to the top of my mind. We're so glad to have you here today. Introduce yourself, tell us about yourself, but also tell us why this conversation is so important to you.
Yeah, well, again, good morning, good afternoon now. As you mentioned, my name is Sharif Small. Serial entrepreneur, but I'm a tax accountant, financial planner, business consultant, close by trade. My company is SCS Financial Firm. So we work with businesses, we work with nonprofits. We provide fractional CFO services to businesses, make sure that your business and your books are in order. So make sure that your financial affairs, you have those profit loss statements, those balance sheets, because you want to make sure that you are capital ready to go after those type of government contracts and be able to grow and scale your business. We provide tax strategies as well as tax services to businesses, as well as we do technical assistance, business consulting, and coaching to businesses. So our goal and our objective is to make sure that your financial foundation is order, but also you'll be able to grow and scale so you'll be able to build generational wealth.
Absolutely. So this procurement conversation, especially around supplier diversity, has been a thing, probably more so since 2020 when everything shifted after George Floyd. There was more of a focus on what it meant to be diverse, what it meant to be inclusive, and all of those things. But here are some things we know that more than anything else, our informal networks are what drive opportunity. And that's whether it's job opportunity, promotional advancement opportunity, or even in procurement and the use of Black businesses. We also know since COVID, more businesses have
Mhm.
popped up. So what can you tell
Yeah,
us
yeah.
about procurement and, as it relates to Black businesses and the opportunity that exists there?
Well, I think the key thing is when it comes to Black-owned business, understand how do you offer your services? You offer it from business to consumer, business to business, business to government, and business overseas. So I think a lot of time we focus a lot on business to consumer and business to business, but when it comes to business to government, it's kind of like a far fetch. We're kind of thinking about it down the line, and we don't think about how could we become, ready to go after those government contracts. I mean, that is how a lot of businesses are able to build wealth is government contract, not just from a federal level, but from a state and a local level as well too. So, but before you can become capital, because of government contracts, as I mentioned before, you got to be capital ready. Government contracts, getting a contract is great, but you got to be able to fill that contract and be able to go weeks and months without even getting paid. So I think the
Mm.
key thing is getting ready to be able to go on government know what agencies are spending based off of the services that you provide. We look from the federal level. DOD is probably the biggest spenders out there, but you want to look at from the state and local level too. See what state agencies or local agencies that are looking to pay for your services. I think one of the biggest challenges that I do see with businesses, especially when it comes like construction, IT, professional services, these big same businesses get the same contracts over and over again, and yeah, they'll have some set asides for a certain percentage to go to businesses, but a lot of times they don't fulfill those obligations, nor do they'll use them, but they don't pay them. And I think that's one of the biggest issues and challenges that I see. So I think for us businesses understanding the procurement process, but then also make sure that there are accountable policies in place that make sure that we as a people are getting access to the economic pie and resources.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about readiness from a framework of you have to have financial sustainability because you may be waiting, right, on the revenue to come in.
Hmm.
But let's talk a
Hmm.
little bit about readiness from other standpoints, like just business readiness. We're talking about insurance requirements and making sure
Oh,
that
I do.
there's
Hmm.
bonding and those kind of things that
Sad.
often kind of keep Black businesses out of the
Hmm.
framework of being able to qualify. But at the same time, I was watching the news this week and I saw that a nonprofit organization, so this is a little different, but still, a nonprofit organization had gotten all of this money from the governor, from the state. And initially, I felt like, wow, you must be in line. You knew, you were networked well enough to get all of that money. And then within 2 weeks, that nonprofit leader was on the news and they were talking about how much
Hmm.
money he owed in past taxes. And I was like, you know what? Keep
And
y'all money.
taxes, yeah.
I don't even want that level of scrutiny. So talk about readiness from like making sure all your ducks are in a row, but also the scrutiny that
Taxes
comes
in
when
a
you
row.
do, yeah,
Yeah,
when you take that
it
money, you
does.
get those big contracts. What happens?
Yeah. I mean, it's not just from an organization, but it's also who's leading that organization as well, too. So I think that when who's leading the organization, there had to be a conversation to know how their personal responsibility is doing. Because as you're starting to get more funding, you're going to go under some more scrutiny. So I think being board ready and then also being financial ready goes hand in hand. So from that nonprofit, they're not filing your 990s is very important, very key. Not registering with the state is very because I've seen people lose government contract because they didn't wasn't in good standing with the state of Maryland. And then when it comes to the bonding process, is a lot of credit requirements, is a lot of financial requirements that can wind up being a challenge. So there has to be some alternatives when it really comes down to it. I actually know a guy that actually has a bonding used to work for the SBA, and he actually has a business and providing bonding to Black-owned businesses where he makes it more affordable. So it really comes down to knowing who's out there that can really provide those support and resources to be able to help these businesses. You also have Apex. They're a government agency where they help a lot of businesses to be able to get ready, play a part of the procurement process. I know sometimes it may be a challenge to get those government resources because they can be short-staffed. But I think it all comes down to that, and I think it also comes down to relationships. Relationships is everything. And the way I think that I know that actually know that person, but I know the way they was able to get those contracts was based off the relationship. They didn't have to, apply for. They just had to apply, but it's not but so much they had to do because of the relationship that they had. My first government contract I got was in 2013, and it was based off a relationship. I got a contract at Fort Meade as a financial planning counselor, and because of the relationship that I had previously, just volunteering doing stuff for people in the military, a contract came up, and they said, before we put it out here, we think you'd be great to be able to go after this contract. And I was able to get my first contract in 13. Provide financial planning workshop sessions for those that were transitioning into civilian life. And that one contract led to a couple other contracts that I can, name down, the line. So it's really about the relationships when it comes down to those contracts. But I think the capital readiness and the board readiness and the organization and the personal readiness really goes hand in hand. You got to make sure your taxes are filed. You got to make sure your 990s are filed. You got to make sure, that you do have a line of credit and do have some capital set aside. And there's going to be someone that's going to have to guarantee that loan. So you got to make sure that credit is where it needs to be. That personal credit as well as that business credit is in order to be able to fill that contract because you're going to have to pay people to do the work, and it's going to take, unfortunately, some time for people for you to get paid by that primary contract. So make sure you have stuff in low because if not, you'll wind up losing staff. Staff for people that don't want to continue to do work if they're not getting paid. So you want to make sure you have all your ducks lined up and everything is in order. So you continue to fulfill that contract and then your credibility and your reputation is in line as well.
Yeah, and like outside of even government contracts, when we just look at like corporate entities that get to choose their vendors and choose who they work with, a lot of times people will use the word trusted, right? And that really is sometimes a shield to say that we're going to use the same people, the legacy
That's
businesses
true.
that we have used over time. How is it then possible with this influx of Black-owned businesses that we get the foot in the door? I know you said relationships, and I want to delve into that, but just even being a new Black-owned business, right? Like that might do it better,
Yeah,
cheaper,
yeah.
quicker. How do you compete with the people that have been
hmm
doing it for decades and generations?
So, unfortunately, it still goes back to relations because when you get into government contract, you're not going to be a prime day one. So, subcontractor is going to be key. So, you talk about these institutions, that's where colleges, universities, hospitals, they have their own procurement process. A lot of times they don't post stuff on the state or on the local side. They have their own process that they deal directly. So, a lot of times, it's always good to see who has gotten the contract in the last couple of years and decide if you want to be a subcontractor or whoever the contractor officer is, see if you can talk to them about breaking up the contract. Sometimes these contracts are too big and they go to the same person, all the time. See if they can kind of split the contract, maybe not in half, but 75, 25% to where that 25% can directly go to you. And then that 75 can go to the big contractor as opposed to 100% keep on still going to the same
Mhm.
contractor over and over again. Even when you think of airports, sometimes there's certain contractors that everybody get the same contract over and over again. So there got to be stuff in place to where you talk to the contract officer, and then hopefully there could be some better policies and some better systems and procedures in place to where they make it break up the contract, make it a little smaller, to where we can actually get that past performance and be able to get the opportunity to fulfill that contract.
So this question in the chat says, what common misconceptions do Black entrepreneurs have about procurement, and how do you help them shift their approach?
That is harder than what it really is, to be honest with you. If we just make it smaller, I mean, from a local and from a state standpoint, of course, everybody goes on, I think it's Maryland Marketplace, EMA, they call it. If you're not on that, I highly recommend that you go on there. I think it's good to be going to different type of events that are out there, and I highly recommend you connect with Apex. But yeah, a lot of people think that, you have to get $1 million contract to get in the government contract. And my first contract was 50,000 that I got, at for me. There's contracts for 20,000, 15,000. Even on the local in the Baltimore City area, you can go on the city website and register on procurement and start getting contracts and then really start building, they call it your capability statement because it shows that you've done the work in the past. And then also too, even if you work for another employer and it wasn't through your own business, and then you start your own business, you can actually use that past performance into your capability statement. You did for 20 years for another employer. Add that to your company because you had that experience. It may not have been through your company, but you've actually done it yourself. You can actually leverage that and go after some of the contracts yourself just to get just to get started.
So this question says, what are the most critical elements of a strategy for successful?
Relationships.
Yeah.
You
All right. So
just
now
said,
let's delve. You've said that
yeah.
so many times. Let's
Let's
delve
go
into
dive
that.
right into it.
Where are these
Relationships is
relationships coming
everything.
from? Because listen, we know, especially if we're talking about Baltimore, Baltimore's small, right? I always talk about this hometown advantage. Mr. Park Heights over there, that's something I don't have, not being originally from Baltimore. But y'all really will look out for one another. I'll tell you that much. How do you break into these relationships you keep talking?
Well, you got to show up. There's always not just different events, but there's different community associations. Like there's quasi-government agencies that you can go to, and they be looking for different type of smaller contracts to be able to even like Park Heights Renaissance. Sometimes they outsource some of the work they looking at, even if it's landscaping, whatever it may be. So it's like you got to start attending some of these, um, you know, uh, community organizations, some of these professional organizations. You have the Great Baltimore Black Chamber of Commerce. You got the, Greater Baltimore City Chamber. Like there's organizations where you can be a part of, and sometimes they have speakers come. Sometimes they are members that you'd be able to, attend. So again, it's all about the relationships that are out there, but you got to be out there forming those relationships, and also just tap into your network that you already had. It could be family and friends. You may not know, but they may know somebody that does know somebody. So it's really grassroots what it really comes down to. And it does takes a little bit of time, but sometimes I've seen people gotten contracts without getting started. They was working, doing some stuff. People love the work that they was doing. They asked them if they had a business. They say no, we'll form that business, and then I got a contract for you to give to you. And again, that was based off of those relationships. So again, you just got to put yourself out
You got
there
to be
and start
outside.
attending
You got to meet
and attend a
people.
lot of yeah, and attend a lot of those professional and business and community events. And sometimes you can just create opportunity. You see there's a need for certain organization that was created. You offer like, hey, this is what I can do to help this organization and whatever their mission, their objectives are, and they can give you a 1099 contract. Like I do economic development for some organization that say, hey, this is what I do. I feel like this is the need for your organization that I can fulfill. And you can just have a direct contract, with them, put together a proposal. You got ChatGPT, put together a proposal, capability stated, got your past performance, and get some references and be able to send that to them, have meetings, hopefully get approved by the board, and then start providing your services to them.
Well, let's talk about some of the obstacles that we have in our community. This says that Black-owned businesses represent about 2.4% of firms in the US, but receive far less than 2% of the national procurement dollars. And also that Black-owned firms are 3 times more likely to be denied loans, to pay higher interest rates even when they are approved, and less
Mm.
than 10% of corporate supplier spend in the US flows to businesses owned by people of color. I mean, that just sounds like a uphill battle.
A challenge. It is. I think the key thing is we work with a lot of financial institutions. You got private equity, you have CDFIs, you have your community banks, you have your regional banks. So we do a lot of capital readiness workshops where we have them and we come and speak. And I think the key thing is that whoever you bank with, you got to know who the commercial lending officer is. You need to know who the SBA rep is. You need to, a lot of times, unfortunately, we have our money there, but we don't have the relationship there. It's a money relationship, but it's not a business relationship. So I always try to encourage the clients that I work with, the businesses that I work with. You got to know, who these people, the community, CRAs, community reinvestment, officer is. So you got to have these relationships because when these contracts come in, you want to be able to share this contract and say, hey, this contract, I have, not going to get paid in 90 days. Is there any way I can get a line of credit, or is there any way I can get like some finance on my accounts receivables to be able to fulfill this contract? So they've known you for a while, they've seen you in action, they've seen you in work. Now they see you got this contract, they feel more comfortable to be able to help you fulfill the contract, even if your credit may not be where it needs to be. And that's a whole other thing we could talk about is be rebuilding that credit. But they see that you got some consistent cash flow coming in from the other things that you're doing. You got this contract, and then they can help you to fulfill that contract. So again, it's a relationship not just with contractors, but you got a relationship with banks and with financial institutions that can really help you to be able to fulfill these contracts. And as far as getting access to the contracts that are out there, yes, there are challenges as far as getting contract. There are unfortunately gatekeepers
Mhm.
that was there. What I always try to recommend is always good that you can try to connect. That's where your city council, that's where your senator, that's where your delegate is supposed to come into play. You have to form the relationships with them. That's where lobbying firms comes into play to where you can really try to be an advocate. That's why everything is political. When you're trying to do bigger and better stuff, everything's political. So those political relationships comes into play, and this is where you're supposed to hold them accountable. So I always tell people, I don't look for a handout. I just want a hand up, right? I don't want government assistance. I don't want to rely on a government job. Like I want some government funding, some government funds to be able to fulfill my contract and to be able to, bring in other streams of income for my business. So I highly recommend you need to know. I think that's one of the issues that I do see is that we don't know even who our city council person is. We need to know who these peoples are. We know who the mayor is, but that's it. So you got to know who these people are and form these relationships and be able to talk to them about bond bills and putting things in place that support businesses in our communities.
Yeah. So, how important to this process is it to have your MBE, your WBE, your DBE? And I ask that because I heard recently that a lot of Black business owners opt out because the process is just too delayed and too difficult
Way
and
too
too
long.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
And that
it's
also we now know we have an administration that's attacking the DBE designation as well. But how important is that for Black businesses to be considered for either commercial or government contracts to actually have that certification?
it's good to get. Just don't rely on it. I'm just being honest with you. Every government contract I've got at least five. They never required me to have it, just to be honest with you.
Mm,
So yes, it's good to have, but just don't say, hey, once I get it, all of these contracts is going to come to me. No, again, it's still going to come down to those relationships. Let's just be real with DEI. It didn't benefit us anyway.
not at
It
all.
benefit more people that didn't look like us. So we have to stop relying on that and we got to be able to form those relationships and we're the creators, we're the innovators, but it's like we're not the owners. So it's like we got to form a coalition to where we got to be an advocate in Annapolis, we got to be an advocate in the city, in the state, in our counties, that we want more for our small businesses and stop settling for the status quo for things that keep them going left and right. And we want things that be able to get our power, but it's like we got to be at the forefront of of doing it. So it doesn't benefit us as much. And I know people that are going through the process still waiting. They get their for them to even come to the house or to the office, they get their MBE certification. So apply for it, but don't rely on it, is what I always say.
Okay, okay. I ran into a young woman the other day, and she was somebody who had a halfway good corporate job, and I asked her what she was up to, and she was like, "Oh, I walked off of my job. I just started my own business, and I'm, putting all my faith in that and moving it forward." And my immediate reaction internally was like, "Sis, you're in danger. It's not time to do that now." But I might be wrong. I see more people stepping out, even in this economic climate, to
Mm.
start these new businesses. I worry about saturation and too many of the same people doing the same thing instead of working together. Is now time to shore up a Black-owned
Mm.
business? And
This is the
tell
best
us what
time.
you think. It's the best time. All
This
right,
is the
well,
best
listen, Sharice,
time
let me get off this
now.
call
This
and
is
go
what I
get
tell
myself.
people. Yeah, form that businesses. This is the best time to be in business. It's the best time to buy real estate. I'm trying to tell people. People focus so much on real estate. I mean, people focus so much on the interest rate. Don't worry about it. Now, I ain't trying to say pay 12, 13% for something, but don't worry about the interest rate. You want to, this is the best time because prices are going down. Prices not
Yes.
going up. When it comes to real estate, interest rate may be going up. It's going down a little bit, but you want to be fine. And this is the best. Even when doing COVID, like I bought my first 12 unit apartment complex during COVID because some people so afraid. So the price stays stagnant, and I was able to get a good price. So you want to be ready. There are people make money during these times. So, but it's just that they just don't look like us, and that's the problem. So that's
Mhm.
where capital ready, capital access, putting money set aside. But yeah, this is the best time to start a business and to be in business. I actually have a cohort I'm going to be running for 2000 for now and 2026, getting people to not only start business, but it's the best time to buy businesses too. And I think
Okay.
that's one of the things we don't talk about enough is there are some businesses, baby boomers, that are listed or just being out there to be bought. And instead of continuing to try to find the same job over and over again, where you're really not going to be have the opportunity to build wealth and then build a legacy for your family and get your financial freedom back. There's a lot of businesses that you can look at to buy right now, and you can buy with other people, right? You can put
Yes.
together a team, a cooler. I got some 10 ladies I work with now where I'm helping them to look into buying more hotels, right?
Okay.
So this is the time right
I
now
mean,
to really start
how
buying
you get on the
business.
list though? See, that's what I'm talking about. You talking about relationship. How you get on the list with the 10 ladies to buy the hotel, right? Like most of us don't have access to that.
Again, it's all about relationships. You gotta
I guess you
gotta
have
talk
that
to
if you don't
people.
ask, right? You have to talk and
Yeah,
yeah,
pretty much.
yeah,
But if anybody interested in doing that, let me know. Me, my twin brother Table, we always working for people. People get people to get into this. He's a board member of ABC.
absolutely.
Getting people to buy. It's just changing the mindset because I think right now we're thinking about getting another government job and getting another job where you may not get paid for weeks, because it could be another shutdown. So instead of doing that, in addition to doing that, I'm not saying not look for a job, but in addition to looking for another, I get it, but think about not just Starbucks, but think about buying car washes, laundromats, self-storage, parking lots. There's a lot of businesses you can buy electrical business. Like there are a lot of businesses out there for sale that you can look into buying, and you may be a little readier to get it. Because again, starting business is one thing, but there are existing businesses out there that's already cash flowing that you can
Mhm.
buy in day one, start making money day one from buying it. So I think we got to think of ways that we can build wealth. It's not just thinking about starting, but buying businesses, buying franchises, and also buying real estate. Because when you buy real estate, it's a business in itself.
Yeah, I'm so interested in that. It's really what my dream was for the Black Leadership Circle too, when we put that together. This concept of cooperative investing. I did some meetings with Lanier
Hmm.
Richardson and looking how they put together over,
Yeah,
yeah, in Emerson
I'm
Village.
invested. I'm investing into that deal.
You are, and Walbrook
Hmm.
Junction, and looking at some other
Yep.
opportunities. And I really feel like,
Hmm.
specifically
Uh,
as Black
I'm investing
professionals
into that deal.
with
Hmm.
disposable income, we have to set the table for these conversations to pull together. Even our little bit pulled together becomes a lot, and see how much
Hmm.
ownership we can establish. So we're gonna have to talk to you because we're gonna have to pull together some strategy meetings at this time with our constituents so that we can change our
Activists.
mindset about this. Now, I'm gonna play
Yeah.
devil's advocate. ABC is an organization that 9 times out of 10, we will do the extra legwork to utilize a Black business, to participate with Black vendors, to use Black proprietors. I mean, that's just our commitment because of our mission work. However, um, there are times, and you kind of hear it out on the street like that when you use Black businesses. Sometimes our cousins show up and they don't, um, they don't show up in excellence, right? And then unfortunately, because of the Black tax, that then, it shouldn't, but that then sways the perspective of other people to continue to use Black businesses. So what do you say about that? How does that play a
Mm,
role in
mm.
losing opportunity for our whole community?
It does. I'm aiming for supporting Black businesses. I aim for it, but at the end of the day, I have a business to run.
Hmm.
So I always aim to connect with those that look like me. And that's where mentorship comes in, and really trying to make sure that we are ready. Because sometimes that can be a challenge. Unfortunately, I didn't hire people that do look like me. And it sometimes turns out, sometimes it don't. And then I've hired people that don't look like me. And it wound up working out a little bit better. So we can't give up on that. Unfortunately, we just can't rely on that because we got to stay in business. It's something called sustainability, when it really comes down to it. So, we got to make sure that we are changing the mindset with our next generation and for people that look like us, that the importance of showing up and showing on time and doing what we're supposed to be doing because there's a legacy of our family and of our community. So that is on one end. On the other end, as a business owner, at the end of the day, we got deadlines we got to meet. We got things we got to get done. So I think there has to be emphasis on that and making sure that we are supporting, people that look like us. But at the same time, we can't let that, you know, hurts us and deteriorate us and make it more challenging, for how we grow as a business and as a community
Yeah.
as well.
Absolutely. And I think about, so many people started businesses in COVID. So many people started nonprofits in COVID. And while it may be a great time to start a business, everyone is not necessarily ready and doesn't business acumen that it takes to run a business. And so I wonder too how mentorship in our community plays such a big role. Like in my early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, owned some Curves for Women fitness franchises out in Glen Burnie and Brooklyn Park. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I also had no mentorship,
Mm,
right? Like I
yeah,
wanted to
yeah,
do something and I set out and did it. I lost a boatload of money. I made a lot of money and then I lost it all, but I had no mentorship. I had no role model. I had no one to shadow. How important is that? And then where do we find people who are willing to take the time in this busy world to like offer that level of guidance to other people?
yeah. So I think I've seen people start businesses, but then they don't know where the resources. So that's why with my company, we just don't just focus on the accounting, on the taxes, but we also focus on business resource support. So that's why we host a lot of workshops.
Hmm.
You've been, I think you came, was a part of our generational business summit that we do every year, and then we do workshops throughout the year that
Sharif,
make
you
sure
know
we
what? I'm
provide.
sorry. I gotta cut you off. You know I get your emails about them workshops. I had no idea you was over there building wealth with people. I just be like, oh, he having a workshop. But go ahead.
Yeah, we
I'm
do it
coming.
all the time,
I'm
every
coming.
couple
Go
of
ahead.
weeks. But then we have partnership with the Small Business Development Center. Each county has one where they have consultants, they have development centers there, they have coaches, they have business people there. Then this is at no cost. It's already paid for through your taxes, whatever with a business plan and a market plan for free. So I think there needs to be better outreach when it comes to that through the agencies, and I think they try to do the best that they can. And that's why, as me, I'm an independent consultant. I'm kind of like that bridge because not every agency can make it to every event. So, I'm actually doing one December the 2nd with the Small Business Development Center from 4 to 6. I make sure that you get that. But the Small Business Development Center, you have SCORE. These are the people that are retired, that are looking to give back information and mentorship, to businesses. So these are good agencies that you can connect with. There's also another called the Maryland Business Opportunity Center, where they provide some services at no cost to businesses. So the key thing is make sure you're connected with the right person that can help you to guide you in your steps. And I always say you want to have a bail team, right? When you start a business, you want to have a banker, you want to have the accountant, you want to have insurance, and then you want to have a lawyer. So make sure you have these things in place as well as a mentor, then a guy. But I say one of the first steps is Small Business Development Center because they also have a lot of workshops and technical assistance to where you can go and it's at no cost. But then they'll connect with someone like myself that does more additional resources to businesses as you're looking to grow and scale your business.
So now you said now's the time to look at car washes,
Laundry
laundromat.
mats,
What else you
yeah.
said? Apartment buildings,
Apartment complexes, and we gotta think bigger. I think I was working with
a
a
grocery
couple
store.
of yeah, you got grocery. Well, you got to think of grocery store. Why can't we own our own banks and why can't we own our own, grocery stores? We can. We did it back in the day. You had Super Pride, back in the day where we owned our own grocery stores. We had Park Sausage. We just got to get, back to that. But it's like we got to collaborate more to be able
Mm.
to, do that and trust each other a little bit more, and then put together some systems and principles in place and really really do it. And then once we do that, then we can hire people more that look like us. We can give those contracts. Like we shouldn't be in a position where we giving contracts to people that look like us because we're in the forefront. Other nationalities do it. When they come to like I'm investing in 3 hotels and there's more, people don't look like us stay in hotels, but that's how the family business, everybody works in the hotel, works in the and then they want up acquiring more hotels together. So it's like we got to think, in that perspective when we think about building wealth is how do we own certain entities, certain agency entities in these communities, and we can hire and contract with those that look like us.
Hmm. So Sharif, you've had this great story that you've shared about opportunity, but tell us about a time where you attempted to break into a procurement space and you had some barriers, or maybe it didn't work out in your favor, and what you chalked that up to.
Good question. Probably would may have been on the real estate side. It may not have been on my side, but we also do facility management. I key thing like when you're in real estate, a lot of time we just thinking about commercial buildings and apartment complexes. But me and my dad, we got a landscaping business, right? And then at the same time, we created something called facility management where, right now it started getting cold. So like you ain't gonna do landscaping. So then you gotta add a cleaning business to it. Then you add some maintenance. So there's certain contracts we try to go after. I mean, it's a good amount we go after. Some we get, some we don't. Just based on the size of the contract or just based on the relationship. But it's like just because you didn't win the contract doesn't mean that you can't go after it again. A lot of times this contract we didn't win, we want to talk to the contract officer and ask the reason why. And then we'll find out who actually got the contract. And then we'll just reach out to whoever won the contract. Say in the future, if somebody don't show up, because sometimes they get the contract, some people don't show up, they're looking to outsource for someone else. We'll look at even a barrier as an opportunity. We'll reach out to them, say, hey, in the future, keep us in mind. And from time to time, that's happened where, we didn't get something, but, things didn't, go the way it's supposed to. There were some challenges, whoever got the contract, and we was able to form a relationship and do some of the work. It wasn't the size of the contract we like, but again, it was a relationship because whoever wins that contract, trust me, that's not the only contract they got. Because they got other contracts that are out there that may be on a federal, state level that you didn't even know, and then you may can fulfill other contracts that they have as well. So you lose a contract, find out who gets it, form a relationship, see what else they got going on, see how you can be an asset too. That's where partnerships and relationships come in. And even if they can't do it internally, they may have somebody else that they know got contracts and they can connect you with as well. So you just got to keep on moving, keep on, pushing, and don't just let that stop you. Form the relationship with the people, internally and externally, and just keep it moving.
hmm So I was talking Saturday, a group of young women, and we were talking about the hive effect and what it means to kind of like build your circle, not that friend circle, because in friendships we have to kind of
Uh,
like feel good about each other, like to spend time together. But like in a hive, we're there to do the work. We need everybody to have value, everybody to take leadership, everybody to bring
mm.
resources. As clearly a serial entrepreneur, it sounds like between your family members and the people with whom you surround yourself, you have a lot of people who are like-minded and want to push and want to grow and want to invest. Like, is that always been your power circle, or have you built that over time?
Kind of built it over time, just learning from my dad and from my aunt how they built, businesses and built real estate. So it was just very blessing building exposure to some things. And then, things change. I hop on YouTube University. So you try to learn from, the Rockefellers and, how they built their family businesses and how they have family meetings and now how they own life insurance and how they own trust and how they own businesses. And they just move different. So that's why I try to learn from other family businesses because that's what it really comes down to. And then how can we incorporate that within our community? But I just encourage people that look like us right now. It's great to get together to have a good time, but we gotta get together and talk about doing business together because other cultures, other nations, they do it every single day, every week, like clockwork every single week like clockwork. And we're the only ones that don't do it as much. We do, but not as much as we should. So try to get around like-minded people between five, to 10 people and really try to put together a plan, put together a strategy to where I talked about buying businesses. We'll see if you can put together 5 or 10 people where y'all can buy, businesses and buy buildings, together, put together some infrastructure. If you need a coach or need a consultant, that's what I do. I help put together I work with different groups of people and help them put together systems, structures, plans, help them form the relationships, and then help them kind of decide what the industries, what areas they can think about doing some acquisitions. We got to get more into mergers and acquisitions. That's really where the money at. And then what people may not like with me saying is there's something called the big beautiful bill that Trump put in place that we can really take advantage of in the merger and acquisition space. So I'm not a type of person who I like to whine and complain. I just try to get our people into the game because whoever's in office, you're not gonna like everything that they do, but you can leverage the good stuff. Whatever is one good thing, you can actually leverage that to be able to build wealth for your family and for your community.
Yeah, and I love the example you gave about your landscaping business with your dad. I mean, you used a weather-related pivot that you all had to layer
Mhm.
the business offerings to make it. But if we use that as an analogy, even for those of us who are facing, systems now that aren't like that are making the work that we traditionally do not thrive as easily, like we're having to layer the business offerings and think of new ways to show up. And
Diversification.
yeah, and
Hmm.
diversify the work. I think
Diversify.
so quickly because we don't have the financial sustainability. A lot of times, the first thing we have to do is shut down or close, or like you said, go get a
Hmm.
good government job,
Hmm.
whatever. But we're not prepared for the pivot. So I think that was so important too. Well, we know in procurement with Black businesses, I mean, everything we said is good and well, but that the system is not built for us to succeed. And so there are some systemic barriers that exist, and you talked about some of them, including making sure small and Black-owned businesses are paid faster, making
Hmm.
sure the requirements for bonding and insurance and those kind of things are The unnecessary ones are eliminated. And then where's the support? You talked about some resources for technical assistance and training and those kind of things. But what does the system need to do to be fairer for Black businesses?
Yeah, so I mean, I know that from a local and from a state standpoint, we got to make sure that the procurement process becomes a lot better and better understanding for us to be able to go after government contracts. I think sometimes the procurement system can be a challenge as far as like how to actually go after government contracts and form those type relationships. So I think there has to be more accountability as well too. I know that the governor put some stuff in place for 2025, I think like in October, but we got to see how that plays out and really track how these contracts are really going to be going to businesses that really, really looks like us. And then again, we got to make sure that we're holding our government officials accountable to make sure these contracts are going to be because there's policies and bills that have been put in place. And laws is one thing, but like, enforcing law, following law is another thing. And I feel like a lot of times that there are things in place, but when we come down to like statistics and data and results, we're not getting the results of things that were put in place. So I just think as business owners, I know we like to focus on our day to day working in the business, but got to make sure we're working on the business. And again, we got to get involved in that political procurement process to making sure that things that are supposed to be in place are working and things that are not in place that we be an advocate. I'm just real big on advocacy, being an advocate and making sure that we're getting the piece of that process. Again, we got to hold people that are in a position that we vote every year accountable. I don't think we do a good enough job doing that, to be honest with you, as a community, as residents, as business owners.
Yeah. So the question in the chat asks about financial risk today, because okay, we've decided now's the time to start a business or to pivot with your business or to buy businesses. But for Black-owned businesses in particular, um, the question is, what are some of the biggest financial risks that threaten, their success long term? And I would have to say, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, that as I think about Black community, and this is a generalization, not everyone, but sometimes we overspend, right? And sometimes we overspend too quickly, right?
I would
Um,
definitely.
I see businesses shored up that suddenly have a, beautiful office space and a lot of employees and a lot of equipment and machinery, and we go out and get all the things because we're excited. And sometimes we scale up too quickly.
Mhm.
And I think I see that as a risk. What do you agree? And also what are other
I
ones?
agree. I mean, I definitely, that's why I'm a CFO. So when I work with people, you got to have a budget, and you got to have a business plan, and you got to have a financial plan from a personal standpoint and from a business standpoint. You got to save and put some money set aside. You got to focus on rebuilding your credit. You want to at least be over, 700. So there's principles and systems in place. That's why I went to school with the Towson. That's why I got my degree in accounting when it comes to financial planning, because I think financial education and financial illiteracy is what affects our communities so much. I think, unfortunately, we like to spend, but we don't like to save and invest as much as we should. And we have to change that mindset. And it really starts with the family and with, our kids in the community. We got to teach financial literacy and entrepreneurship early. That's why I have a nonprofit where we teach kids financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and real estate. And I like with ABC, you have a financial literacy program where you have the kids come in. And I think I've spoken to some of that stuff in the past. So I think that's great that you're doing that. But we have to live within our means. It's very important. It's very key. We got to be able to ride things till the wheels fall off, and then we
You
got to
know,
make sure we have
we're not doing
and
none
we
of
have
that.
and we have to, because if we look at other nationalities that
Yeah.
look like that don't look like us, they're not worried about the culture. Like, it's not about the culture with them. It's about community. And I think we focus too much on culture and we don't focus enough on community. We say it, but like when it comes to our community and the finances that we have, too many of our communities look in poverty and equality, and that's the problem. So it's like we got to make sure that we continue the work uplifting. And that's what I'm proud of what y'all doing with ABC, and love to continue to be a partner, because it takes partnerships to be able to really uplift uplift our communities and education and resources and community.
And I think to add one more thing to that, it takes sharing opportunity. Because
Hmm.
when we talk about progress in the Black community around Black businesses, sometimes there are only a handful of people that have access to the opportunity. So before I talk about what white folks can do, to pass on opportunity to us. Let's talk about our own community where we see the same contractor getting the contracts. We see the same construction company getting all the jobs. We see the same organization having access through the city to buy all the buildings and do the redevelopment, whatever else. And then we say, well, look, there's progress. Look at these black, shiny black people. They're doing well, but it's a very small percentage of who needs to do well, doing well. How do we start to share major wealth building opportunity in our community and understand that by sharing, it does not diminish what we're
Yeah,
capable.
yeah, yeah. And I think having these type of conversations in community meetings and events. So I think throughout the year we need to have more of these type of conversations, but turn these conversations to like actual engagement, actual action meetings to where if we have opportunities, we should be open to like sharing those opportunities. I think if we start moving up the economic ladder, I think we should looking at more collaborating with other businesses that look like us. Because again, it's all about, you may work for yourself, but don't worry about working by yourself. And I think that's one of the challenges that we have in our community. We got to be able to share information. When I try to do a lot of workshops and events, I want to share information and I want to share opportunities for businesses that look like us, so we can all like collectively get that economic pie. So I just think we got to be more intentional. I think it has to be now. I think 2026, there needs to be a plan and a structure and a system in place between other organizations and other community leaders and business leaders. How can we collectively work together to be able to go after those opportunities together and then create opportunities for each other, as well.
And I think we waste so much time with convincing and the lack of trust. With
Hmm.
sometimes I wonder because your events
Too.
are so well attended, and ABC has really well attended events. And when I look out
Hmm.
and I see, 200 people in the room, and I say to myself, like, what if everyone in this room could just put $500 in the pot, right? Like, what would
Yeah,
that
yeah.
enable us to like invest in or do? But we bump up against a community sometimes that needs something tangible immediately and
Hmm.
needs an immediate return. And so you know what, I think you and
Instead
I
of
should
delayed.
host an event. We should charge a cover, and when they get in there we'll be like, congratulations, your
Yeah, it's
registration
going
fee just
towards
went
going
into the
towards.
apartment building that we now have the down
Hmm.
payment for or whatever.
Well,
Because
yeah.
you can't waste time convincing. It's really the killer of opportunity, I think.
Yeah, I think we need to get more into like crowdfunding and really putting together funds and groups and raising capital and then being intentional. Because there's a lot of inventory in the city and the county and places that can be acquired, if we put our ducks and our lines in the row and then have a plan of what we're going to do. Because there's properties that can be bought and it can be used for community and event space as well as co-working space. So again, we have to have a plan of what are we looking to do in 2026 and how that as we are looking to acquire something, yes, we got to bring in cash flow, but we got to focus on how this acquisition can make an impact and
Yeah.
make a difference in our community and for our kids. I think just got to be intentional of what is out there that we can actually look into acquiring and how we can best have it to where it can be best utilized from so many different institutions from a public, a private, and standpoint.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when we talk about, listen, we didn't break the system, we didn't create the broken system. It's very difficult we can navigate it, but it's very difficult for us to repair a system that was built by, hierarchy and structural racism and all those kind of things. So when we look at white allies, hearing this conversation, some of whom make these decisions for large institutions or at the government level, um, some of the things obviously we always say is like use your influence to open doors, make introductions, help us expand networks, but also down to the nitty gritty. It's like sometimes you have to pass the power on, right? Like, what does it look like to share opportunities to actually give the opportunity to a Black-owned business? What are other ways white allies and structural systems need to lean in to support growth in our community?
Well, I think the key thing is that for them supporters, they got to feel comfortable in supporting us. And then they got to be a plan, they got to be a mission, got to be a purpose with it. We can't tell them that, we want A, B, and C, but we don't have X, Y, and Z in place. So we got
Hmm.
to have things in place, like have a plan, have a purpose. Yeah, I want to do this. I want to acquire this. I want to bring this, and then have how everyone can benefit from it. I think if we do that, they'll have an interest and wanted to do business, with us. But we got to show that we're serious and intentional to be able to, to be able to do it. Because if not, they're not going to take us, seriously if we don't have like a concrete plan of what we're trying to, what we're trying to do, and then we don't have the infrastructure and the principles and the system in place and have a 5, 10 year plan. When I work here, I try to give them a 5, 10 year, 20 year plan. We were trying to have over $100 million of assets of well-being assets that's bringing in, over couple $1 million a year in gross revenue. Those are the type of deals that we try to focus on when it comes to, working with majority of our people, because we're trying to get people that look like us to, think bigger, not just think, small. There are a lot of big opportunities. Now you can build up to it, and that's one of the things we work on. But what's that 10, 20 year plan to be able to really get into acquisition and acquiring things?
So, Sharif, I have some rapid fire questions for you here. The first is which ecosystems, accelerators, chambers, supplier diversity councils actually move the needle, and how should businesses be leveraging them?
Be a part of all of them. I'm a part of chambers. I'm a part of, different organizations, on committees, on boards. You got to, not saying weigh yourself thin, but don't limit yourself either. Make sure you have the right balance as well. So again, that's from a community, business, and then government. There's a lot of agencies and organizations that you can be a part of, to be a part of what's going on within the city, within the state and with the federal. The key thing is getting plugged in. Social media is very key. Like I'm very intentional what's going on in the community from different levels that you can be a part of, and then also as well too is this. Sometimes we got to think outside the box. I know state of Maryland is great, but sometimes I do stuff in DC, I do stuff in Virginia, I do stuff in Pennsylvania, and I do stuff in Delaware, and I'm able to see what they're doing in other states and kind of take some of those resources and those opportunities and also system in place and see these are some of the things we can actually look into do in the state of Maryland as well. So really try to form a lot of relationships as it all really comes down to it. And then relationships should be turning into those partnerships. I know my brother would say, the contracts, you gotta turn those contacts into contracts. And the biggest thing is the R, which is the relationship. I got that from him, is the relationship. So you got to be able to turn those things into a contract and be able to utilize those contracts. So when you get the revenue, then you can get into acquiring more assets, and we can start not just hiring people from a W-2, but you also can hire people from a 1099 standpoint as well. We get them opportunities.
All right. So this question says, if you had to recommend the first three steps for a Black-owned business beginning on their procurement journey, what would they be? Three.
First thing, capability statement. You can chat GPT, have a business plan, have a capability statement. Those are private. And then the second thing is the service that it provides, see what agencies are actually paying for it. If it's DOD, is it SBA, is it environment, whatever agency, you need to see what type of what's that they have a USA government spending from a federal, state, local level. See how they're spending, who they are spending with. So I would say that would be the next thing. And then after that, I highly recommend you connect with Apex. But there's also other contractors out there that also do government contracting that may be contractors with Apex. Because Apex is an agency, I think it's acquisition procurement accelerator. I can't remember the acronym, but they used to be PTAP, but it's called Apex. However, you connect with them, get on their website. They do a lot of series of workshops and events, a lot of them on Zoom. They also have a YouTube channel, so you can see previous workshops that they've done. And then they have a lot of speakers that don't, all of them don't work for Apex. Some are contractors, some are employees. Some of these contractors, you can reach out to them and see if they can be your coach. Now, it's not going to be free, but see if they can be your coach and they can actually help you navigate the system. There are a lot of things that are free, or I would say at no cost, because there are agencies out there and it's paid for the taxes, but you're going to have to hire some professional help to where you're going to have to open up. We always spending money on the wrong things anyway, so we got to make sure we are, investing the right way. Make sure you do your due diligence, you check them, that they are, a credible source and they're not really trying to take your money and run, but they're credible, they in this space, they can really help you. Then, if they can work within your budget, you can hire them, as your consultant, as your coach to be able to help you navigate, through the process.
And there's so many people now with like these fractional accounting, fractional
Hmm.
HR,
Hey,
fractional IT, fractional legal services, because everybody, I mean, no one really can afford the overhead of having
hmm
people on staff full time, but they need the
hmm
services. And so it's such a way
Yeah.
to share the expense of those things. So the
hmm
last question I see here says, what should Black-owned businesses focus on to gain competitive advantage in industries where they are historically underrepresented?
Goes back to relationships again. I'm being honest, you gotta focus back on being out there. I have people that I work with all the time. They're like, I'm doing the work, but they don't have the relationship. So you gotta make sure you get involved with organizations, even volunteering sometimes, but there are organizations. ABC is a great organization where you can meet a lot of people and they have a lot of good business leaders, a lot of good contacts, a lot of good relationships that you'll be able to leverage and be able to utilize it for your business and for your community. So you need to be forming those relationships with different business, community, professional, leading organizations, and really leverage those organizations into some contracts, into some business and personal resources.
Good stuff. So we're coming to a close, and I want to give you the opportunity. We've had a really robust conversation. I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go back and listen to it so I can get those investment tips because I feel like you just dropped
Uh,
some good investment strategies on us. And I think for those who are interested, Sharif, if you're able to just put whatever contact information you would like to in
I
the
can
chat.
put it in the chat. Not a
Yeah,
problem.
so
Do
that
that
people
now.
can tap into these seminars that you are doing. But we want you to also just leave the audience today and those who will watch the playback with just some basic insight and advice on Black-owned businesses, procurement, and what we should be doing at this time to shore up our generational wealth.
Yeah, so I would say the key right now, make sure that you living within your means. I think that's the first thing. You got to make sure you're looking at your budget and your financials. I think that is very key. Your household budget, your business budget. You got to live within your means. You got to be a good steward of your money. If I could be biblical, make God not just a part of your life, make him a center of your life because life is life and things are gonna be challenging. See, relationship. We always talk about all the relationship, but your relationship with the man upstairs is the most important thing because that's really going to get you through. So getting into his word, getting into his worship, be in alignment, be in surrender, but be in alignment and being obedient to him. So I'll say that'll be the very first thing. Second thing, be a good steward of your money. So I mentioned living within your means, make sure you have a budget. You're gonna have to cut back some things. You got to cut back on your spending, you got to cut back on your, eating out. There's a lot of things, it's something called sacrifice, right? Sacrifice is very important and very key. It's called delayed gratification, which I think is very key. To increase your earning power, you got to increase your learning power. So you got to start reading. Relationships is key. Reading is key too. So you got to cut back what you watch on TV, what you listen to radio. I said your car need to be a university on wheels. Like I watch YouTube while I'm in the car. When I watch YouTube while I'm at home, so I'm always educating, and learning. So I think that's very important. That's very key. Couple books you need to read. Rich Lewis, Watch the White Guys Have All the Fun. I think that's a great book because he's the wealthiest black man to buy businesses overseas that's unheard of. So it's been done before. We just got to continue on that legacy and keep on, doing it. So those things I think is a key. And then I would say the last thing is, those books is key. I say last thing is seek professional help. The Small Business Development Center, Small Business Resource Center in Baltimore City, Maryland Business Opportunity Center, and SCORE. Seek those relationships and seek those assistance and resources to help you get with your entrepreneurship journey. And then I'll put my information in the chat. I'd love to be able to tap you in. We got some cohorts we're going to be running real quick. We're going to run into some more capital readiness cohorts in 26, how to buy your own building in 26, and how to buy other businesses. These are courses we're going to be running in 2026. So love to be able to partner with ABC on some of those.
Please, please,
And
let's talk
I
about
think
that.
that'd be great.
Absolutely. Sharif, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge. Thank you for giving us advice, talking about things that have worked well and how to avoid things that haven't worked well. We really appreciate your insight today,
Hmm.
and it has been invaluable. And thank you all for joining us as well. We will be back to close out the year. Believe it or not, it'll be December with Equity at Work, where our topic will be the quiet retreat. Black leadership in an equity backlash era. Uh-oh, y'all black leaders, you walking away from equity, and we're going to address it in December. For Associated Black Charities, I am Chrissy Thornton. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you, Chrissy. Thank you. Appreciate y'all.
Sure.